Karoline Leavitt thought she was used to handling any question. But then Elon Musk's 5-year-old son asked something that silenced the entire dinner table. What she did next will move you and open a new perspective. The dinner had ended nearly an hour ago, but Karoline still sat at the glossy long table, phone in hand, hastily noting for tomorrow's press briefing. Her dessert plate sat untouched, her water glass leaving a damp ring on the linen napkin. She wasn't sure why she hadn't left. Maybe the heated debates had drained her, or maybe a small sharp moment kept clinging to her mind. She recalled, there were 10 people around the table, leaders, tech billionaires, 2 former generals, and a quiet boy named X, who came with Elon Musk. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. A 5-year-old boy amid a dinner full of adults talking in circles. He sat next to Musk, mostly silent, eating bread and fidgeting with a napkin folded clumsily into a bird. He spoke only once, and it's what Karoline couldn't stop thinking about. Amid a lively debate, Musk was explaining a new signal system to make satellites communicate faster, and a senior official countered over security risks. Words piled up, full of jargon and predictions. Then suddenly, X spoke. What happens when people die? The room went quiet, not tense, not awkward, just still. Every adult looked at the boy, then did the familiar thing, smiled politely, shifted in their seats, and carried on as if they hadn't heard. Karoline looked down at the table, saw X staring at his napkin bird, and felt a pang of sadness, not for the question, but for the silence that followed. Now, alone in the quiet White House dining room, Karoline sighed. She stood, her legs sore from the long day, and walked into the hallway. An aide passed, muttering about a call from Nevada. She waved it off. Later, she needed air. She passed familiar corridors, where portraits, chandeliers, and windows seemed to witness countless stories. Almost unconsciously, she pushed open the glass door to the west garden. The night air was cooler than she expected, autumn creeping in gently. She walked slowly along the path toward the old bench under the maple, then stopped. The small figure was curled up alone. It was X, still in his little jacket from dinner, clutching the now crumpled napkin. The boy was quiet, eyes red, staring at the dark grass like searching for answers. Karoline approached softly. "Why are you out here?" she asked gently. X looked up, startled, then shrugged. "I snuck out." She smiled. "I do that too." She sat at the other end of the bench, keeping space. X didn't look at her, hugging the napkin like a blanket. "You asked something at dinner," she said after a moment. The boy nodded, eyes down, and no one answered. He nodded again. "I'm sorry about that," Karoline said. "You probably caught them off guard." X finally looked up. "Do grown-ups not like those questions?" She tilted her head. "You mean about death, and other stuff?" X said. "They go quiet, like I did something wrong." Karoline Leavitt exhaled slowly, feeling her heart grow heavy at X's words. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said softly. "Then why do they look at me like that?" X asked, his voice curious, yet hurt. Karoline quietly searched for an answer, one that was honest, not scary. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "grown-ups are afraid of questions they don't know how to answer." X frowned, his little legs swinging under the bench. "But they're grown-ups, don't they have to know everything?" Karoline smiled, a sad smile. "I used to think so, but growing up just makes you older, not always wiser." X went quiet, legs still swinging. "I asked my dad once," he said softly. "He said people go back to the stars, but he said it so fast, like he wanted to say something else." Karoline nodded, her gaze gentle. "Maybe your dad doesn't know how to say what he really thinks." She paused, then asked, "What do you think about it, about death?" X looked out at the garden, moonlight softly covering everything. Karoline continued, her voice warm. "I've lost people I loved. Some left suddenly, some slowly. I sat with them, said goodbye even though I wasn't ready. And you know what I learned?" X leaned in, eyes wide. "I don't know what happens after," she said. "But I believe there's something good, something gentle." The boy stayed silent, then whispered, "What if they forget me?" Karoline turned, surprised. You mean who? The people who are gone. X nodded, his voice shaky. What if they forget I loved them? She swallowed hard, feeling her heart tighten. I don't think love works that way, she said. When you love someone, really love them, it stays, even if they're not here. Even if you forget their voice, the love is still there. X was quiet for a long time, then murmured. I don't want to grow up if I have to forget everything. Those words stirred something in Karoline. She looked at the boy, not just Elon Musk's son, but a child with sadness and curiosity deeper than 5 years could hold. She remembered her childhood in a small town, when she asked her grandma, where do people go when they're gone? Her grandma smiled, handed her an embroidered handkerchief, and said, they're in the little things we keep. She'd forgotten that until now. Want to know what I think? She asked. X nodded. Karoline pointed to the sky. You know shooting stars, they flash by, so bright. X nodded. Right, but even when they're gone, their light keeps going through the dark, and maybe someone sees it long after, and says, look, that's beautiful. X blinked, looked at the sky, then back at her. People are like that, she said. When someone leaves, the love they left keeps going, like that light. Do you really believe that? X asked. Karoline smiled. I'm starting to. A breeze rustled the leaves. Karoline stood. Come on, let's go in before they think I lost a little philosopher. X giggled, taking her hand. They walked through the garden, dry leaves crunching underfoot, the silence between them no longer heavy but full. Not every question has an answer, but sometimes asking together is enough. The next morning, pale sunlight peeked through the White House windows. She jolted at a voice, it was X, saying, do you really believe that? She walked to the window, looking out at the west garden. Everything outside was calm, but inside her it wasn't. She wasn't used to this, a woman always ready with answers, now shaken by a question. She thought of her days back home, running through fields with her brother, asking everything without fear of being laughed at. Now her job made her quick to speak, quick to think, but X reminded her that sometimes stopping to listen matters more. Karoline Leavitt usually pushed past unease by talking fast or working hard, but this time, she couldn't escape. No meeting, no camera, no praise could chase away the feeling. In her White House office, coffee sat ready, but silence hung heavy. She sank into the leather chair by the window, sipped, the warmth not touching the chill creeping inside. I don't want to grow up if I have to forget everything. She didn't know why that hurt more than the rest. Maybe because, deep down, she'd felt it too, as a kid, wanted to ask, but never dared. She picked up her phone, thought about calling Elon Musk, then set it down. What would she say? Your son asked about death. He's scared, and he wonders why you didn't answer. No, that wasn't a morning conversation. Instead, she opened her desk drawer. Inside was a stack of letters, mostly unread, notes from citizens, kids' drawings, sometimes a book from a pastor, or a handwritten card from a friend. She ran her hand over them, picked one at random. It was from a woman in Oregon, neat handwriting. Miss Leavitt, please don't forget ordinary people like us. We pray for you every night. I wonder if in this capital, anyone still believes in simple things. She read it again, then set it down. X's question shook her, but not just about death, it was about silence, the way adults hide vulnerability, thinking honesty makes them weak. But wasn't the boy the strongest, daring to ask what no one at the table would? Karoline leaned back, closed her eyes. She saw X, sitting under the maple in the west garden, moonlight making his small face glow. She remembered how he clung to her words, not because they were perfect, but because they were gentle, honest. Even if you forget their voice, she thought of her grandma, gone when she was young. Grandma taught her to embroider handkerchiefs, told stories of hometown fields. She hadn't thought of her in years, but now the memory flooded back, painfully clear. She remembered her voice, realized how long it had been since she let herself feel that loss. A soft knock came. Ma'am, an aide said, Mr. Musk is in the conference room, prepping for the tech meeting. Need to see him. Karoline nodded. When he's done, ask him here. Just him. The aide nodded, left. She stood, walked to the window, looked at the west garden. Reporters set up at the gate, security stood like statues, and somewhere, she hoped X was playing, still asking his questions. An hour later, Elon Musk entered her office. He looked busy as always, phone in hand, mind on half a dozen ideas. But he paused when he saw Karoline not at her desk, but by the window. "You wanted me?" he asked. Karoline nodded, gestured to the chair across. "Have a seat." Musk sat, curious. "Something happened last night," she began. Musk raised an eyebrow. "Your son asked a question at dinner." He nodded slowly. "About death." "You heard it right?" Musk shrugged. "Sure, but I didn't know what to say." Karoline looked at him, voice calm. "So you didn't say anything?" Musk looked briefly unsettled, his usual confidence gone. "What do you say to a 5-year-old about death?" He wouldn't get it. Karoline leaned forward. "He got that you didn't answer. X told me grown-ups look at him funny when he asks hard questions, that they go quiet." She paused, recalling X's eyes in the garden. "I'm not here to judge," she said. "I've been silent on big questions too. But last night I learned he doesn't need a perfect answer. He just needs someone to listen." Musk looked at his hands, silent. Karoline smiled faintly. "He's a special kid. Don't let his questions get lost." Elon Musk's eyes flickered with unease. "X is always curious," he said. Karoline shook her head gently. "It's not just curiosity, it's loneliness." Silence settled. She exhaled slowly, voice soft but firm. "I've messed up too, filled others' silence with my words. But last night, I saw a boy trying to understand something he shouldn't face alone. And no one answered him." Musk looked genuinely moved, his usually sharp, distracted eyes now present. "What did you tell him?" he asked. Karoline looked out the window, where faint sunlight bathed the west garden. "I said love is like a shooting star. It keeps going even when people leave." Musk looked at his hands. She added, "He listened and I listened to him. I think that's what he really wanted, not a perfect answer, but someone not afraid to sit with him in uncertainty." The room fell quiet. Karoline looked at Musk. "We're raising kids in a world, even we don't fully get. They don't need us certain. They need us there." Musk nodded slowly, saying nothing. Karoline stood. "X is a special boy. Don't let the noise drown out his voice." Musk stood too. "I won't." She nodded lightly, turned back to the window. Musk left without another word, and Karoline stood there, watching the new day pass, thinking of kids asking big questions, and adults forgetting that not knowing is sometimes the truest answer. That evening, the White House office was quieter than usual. No big speech, no press conference, just the soft autumn breeze through the window, and light footsteps on the marble hallway. Karoline sat alone, the fireplace crackling. All day, X's questions spun in her mind, like a bird circling still water. But now, another thought crept in, an uninvited question. When was the last time I really asked Mom something deep? Not something casual, but something real. She had no answer, and that unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. She stood, hands stiff from sitting too long, and walked into the hallway. The White House at night felt different, less formal, like a place where truth could exist without a press release. She passed her office, paused at a small photo on the desk. Her family back home, her mom smiling by a field. She tapped the frame, kept walking. She wanted to call her mom but didn't know how to start. She stood in the hallway, dim light spilling from a room. She knocked lightly, unsure what she expected. No answer. She pushed the door, saw her mom, or rather her memory of her, in her mind. She smiled sadly, stepped into the office, sat down. "I met a boy yesterday," she said to herself, as if her mom could hear. "Elon Musk's son. He's 5, asked about death." She paused, imagining her mom raising an eyebrow in surprise. No one answered him. "I found him later, said what I thought, or what I hoped I believed." She sighed. "It made me realize something. I don't know if I've ever really talked to you about things like that." She went quiet, feeling the space around her listen. "Did you ever think about it?" she wondered. about being forgotten. She remembered her mom saying, when she was young, people's biggest fear is no one remembering them. But if you love someone, that memory lives forever. She hadn't fully grasped it then, but now it echoed. She stood, walked to the window, looked at the west garden. I don't want to forget, she whispered, as if the words could reach someone far away. She thought of X, how he made her look at herself. She took her phone, texted her mom, "Mom, I want to hear the story about back home again." She hit send, felt lighter. She knew, like X, she was learning to ask questions, even if the answers weren't clear. Karoline Leavitt listened, feeling her heart tighten at the memory's words. Not death, she told herself, as if her mom were there, but disappearing, no one remembering who we were. She swallowed hard, the voice in her head ringing. I think I felt that when Grandma died, she whispered. She was funny, gentle, always gave me candy after school. When she left, I couldn't recall her smile for years. I buried it, maybe because I was scared of the pain. The memory seemed to watch her, silent but profound. I never said it out loud, she admitted to herself. A quiet settled, only the soft autumn breeze through the White House window. Then a question rose in her mind, as if her mom asked, "Are you ever afraid?" Karoline smiled sadly, looking at the west garden. Every day she answered herself. Afraid of letting people down, wasting time, talking so much I forget to hear what matters, missing what's real, because I think the world needs me to be right, instead of true. The memory seemed to nod. A lot, she whispered. That's right, she agreed. Then another thought came, one she'd wanted to ask her mom. I had a question once, but I stopped asking. She wondered, why? Because I thought you wouldn't want to answer. She took a deep breath, as if her mom were waiting. What if I grow up and I'm nothing like you? If I don't want to stand in front of crowds, live in the spotlight, just want a quiet life, far from all this? What if I disappear from the world? Her chest tightened. She imagined her mom stepping close, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then I'd find you, the voice said in her mind. Wherever you go, I'd find you and listen to everything you want to say. She smiled, eyes stinging. You promise, she whispered. I promise, the memory replied. She sat there a long time, not fixing anything, just being in the truth between her and her mom. That night, Karoline took a paper from her desk, wrote a few lines. Sometimes the question matters more than the answer, and the one who dares to ask is stronger than the one pretending to know it all. She folded it, tucked it in the drawer, felt a part of her grow lighter. The next morning, she did something rare, took the morning off. No cameras, no briefings, no emails. She just told her aide, I'll be back by noon, then walked to her car, leaving unsigned papers and unread messages. She gave the driver an address she rarely mentioned, her small hometown a few hours from the capital. The roads were different now. Old diners gone, shops updated, sidewalks cleaner but emptier. But memories lingered in every corner. She told the driver to stop at a small house, weathered wood walls, steps leading to a green door. It was her grandma's house, where she spent childhood summers. She wasn't sure what she'd find, but she got out, hands in pockets, and walked to the door. It creaked open. Inside, the space was empty, sunlight streaming through windows, dust floating like mist. She sat on an old wooden bench, its creak echoing. She hadn't come to pray, but to find a place that knew who she was. She closed her eyes, thought of her grandma, her mom, the days when life was simple, before spotlights and job pressures. She remembered sitting here, legs swinging, bored by her grandma's long stories but enchanted by the handkerchiefs she embroidered. She'd asked, as her grandma spoke of old times, where do things go when they're gone? Her grandma smiled, touched her hair. Closer than you think. She didn't get it then, but now she wondered if her grandma meant memories aren't far, but in the small things we hold, like love, like X's question. She opened her eyes, felt relief, like she'd reclaimed a lost piece of herself. She wondered if happiness was right here, in the small acts of love, truth, and presence, like sitting with a boy asking about death, or listening to herself ask, what if I don't want to be like anyone else? She stayed a long time, letting memories flow. Then, from the far corner of the room, slow footsteps sounded. She looked up, saw a frail, upright elderly woman step into the dim window light. "Miss Leavitt?" she asked gently. Karoline stood, surprised. "You know me?" The woman smiled. "I was your summer school teacher." Her name rushed back, Mrs. Laney. Karoline nodded, moved. "You asked a lot back then," Mrs. Laney said, eyes twinkling. "Always wanted to know more than I could teach." Karoline smiled faintly. "Still do." Mrs. Laney stepped closer, sat across from her. "What brought you here?" she asked. Karoline paused, eyes on the window. "A boy asked me, what happens when people die?" Mrs. Laney listened silently. "I tried to answer," she continued, "but it made me realize I'd stopped asking questions of myself." Mrs. Laney nodded lightly. "Answers can be wise," she said, "but the questions we keep asking, even grown, are what's precious." Karoline nodded, voice softer. "I used to think I had to know everything, to lead, to protect, to never doubt." Mrs. Laney reached out, her wrinkled hand clasping Karoline's. "And now," Karoline looked down. "Now I think the bravest thing is to say, I don't know, but I'm here, and I'm listening." Mrs. Laney smiled, as if seeing the girl from years ago. "Your mom would be so proud." Karoline swallowed hard, feeling her mom's memory flood in. They sat in silence, letting unspoken things settle. Finally, Karoline stood. "I should go, they'll wonder." Mrs. Laney nodded. "You'll come back?" "I think so," she replied. Outside, the autumn breeze greeted her like an old friend. She didn't feel younger, but lighter, like a part of her had been waiting here all along. She got home before noon, and the first thing she did was text her mom, "Free this afternoon. Want to walk with you." They strolled slowly through the West Garden, not talking much, until her mom suddenly asked, "Do you think people go somewhere after they're gone?" Karoline smiled gently. "I'm not sure," she said, "but I think the love we give gets there, no matter what." Her mom nodded. "I like that." Karoline did too. That night, she placed a paper on her desk, penciled by hand. "The most important person is the one who dares to ask what no one else will." Days later, the White House was oddly quiet, not from crisis or news, but because something in Karoline had shifted. Those close to her noticed. She listened longer, spoke slower, and for the first time in a while, asked questions without rushing to answer. One morning, Elon Musk returned for a tech meeting. X came along, trailing his dad, eyes on the hallway chandeliers. "Miss Leavitt," Musk greeted. She smiled. "Elon." Then she crouched, looking into X's eyes. "How's my little philosopher?" X grinned shyly. "I haven't asked anything big today." Karoline laughed. "Maybe you're waiting for a good answer." Musk watched, curious. "I'm heading to the conference room," he said. "The boy can stay with you, if you want." She nodded. "I'd like that." They went to the West Garden, same bench, same light breeze, but the leaves now golden. The silence between them wasn't awkward but familiar. Karoline looked at X. "You know, I thought about you a lot this week." X looked up, because of my question. "Yeah," she said. X fiddled with a leaf. "Did you find an answer?" Karoline smiled. "Not quite, but I found something else." Karoline Leavitt looked at X, her gaze gentle, asking big questions, and not shying away from them, is a kind of strength, even if you're little, she said. X nodded, thoughtful. She went on, "After talking with you, I texted my mom. I told her about you, how your question helped me remember things I'd forgotten." She looked at the sky, like how it's okay not to know, that love goes on even when people leave, and listening, really listening, is sometimes the best answer. X stayed quiet, then said softly, "I'm glad I spoke up." Karoline smiled. "Me too." X turned to her. "Do you think other grown-ups are scared?" She looked at the boy, voice sincere. "I think most are, but they hide it. Some hide behind work, some behind anger, some behind being busy." X looked down. "My dad's always busy." Karoline's voice softened. "I was too for a long time." "Do you think your dad loves you?" She placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "I know he does, but sometimes love gets buried under things grown-ups think they have to do." doesn't mean it's not there. X's eyes shimmered, like he was holding a big feeling. Karoline continued. Your question reminded me that being strong isn't pretending. It's caring enough to be honest, even when it's hard. A quiet moment passed. Then she asked, can I ask you something? X nodded. What do you think happens when people die? X thought for a long time, then said, I think they go to a good place, quiet, soft, where no one's in a rush. Karoline smiled. Sounds like a great place to me. X leaned slightly against her. I hope I go there, but a long time from now. She looked at him gentle. Someday you will. But you've got a whole life to live first, and lots of questions to ask. X smiled, small but bright. From the garden's end, an aide called softly, Miss Leavitt, Mr. Musk is ready. She nodded, looked at X. Let's go, your dad's waiting. X stood, then suddenly turned, hugging her waist tightly. Thanks for not being scared, he whispered. Karoline felt her eyes sting. She placed a hand on his back. Thanks for being brave enough to ask. X ran off, his small figure blending into the garden light. She watched him go, wind swirling dry leaves at her feet, like a silent round of applause. That night, in her White House office, Karoline sat alone. She opened a notebook, not for work or press notes, but a blank page. She wrote, sometimes a child's question is the echo of a truth we've buried too long. And sometimes the answer isn't in knowing, but in sitting with them, unafraid. She closed the book, looked out the window. Stars began twinkling over the west garden sky, and for the first time in a long while, Karoline felt she didn't need to be anything more than a person, listening and present. She thought of X, her mom, her grandma, and herself. The girl who once feared asking questions would make her lost. But now, thanks to the boy, she knew those questions were how we find each other. She smiled, texted her mom again. I'll call you tomorrow. Want to hear more about Grandma? Then she stepped onto the balcony, letting the autumn breeze carry away her worries, keeping only the stillness X had given her, a gift from a small question, big enough to change a heart. The story of Karoline Leavitt and young X reflects a deep perspective on connection and listening in modern American society, where fast-paced lives and work pressures can make us forget simple but meaningful things. In today's United States, with booming technology and social media's grip, X's question, what happens when people die? And his fear of being forgotten remind us that even in a digital age, people crave real presence. Karoline, a young woman as press secretary, was initially swept up in the White House grind, but the encounter in the West Garden made her pause, reflecting on her childhood, her mom and her grandma. Details like the crumpled napkin X clutched, the shooting star she used to explain love, or the text she sent her mom all symbolize connection across time and distance. The lesson is we need to make time to listen, not just to kids like X, but to loved ones and ourselves. In America, where people are often busy with jobs and phone screens, try doing what Karoline did, set aside emails, walk in a park, or call your mom to ask something simple like, tell me about the old days. Don't fear big questions or uncertainty, like when Karoline admitted she didn't know the answer about death, because that honesty builds trust. Be present, like she was with X, so those small moments in the West Garden become shooting stars, forever shining in someone's memory. Subscribe to explore more touching stories like Karoline and X's journey, where every question opens a heart. Thanks for joining us. See you in the next video with plenty more shooting stars of love and listening.